All right, so there is a lot of chatter about the pausing at a minimum of Jimmy Kimmel's late night show after comments he made about the whole Charlie Kirk situation. So I wanted to just go through a bunch of facts about all of this. Okay? Because I think that's really worthwhile in a moment like this where there's people making accusations all over the place. All right, so let's start with what Kimmel actually said that appears to have gotten him into trouble. All right, so this is Monday night. Okay, Monday night, Jimmy Kimmel says this, quote, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving." Now, here's what we know about before and after what Kimmel said. So on Sunday, the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, had said that the guy who did this, who I'm not going to name, the guy who we believe murdered Charlie Kirk, has been charged with murdering Charlie Kirk, ascribed to leftist ideology. But we didn't know much more than that at that point on Monday. Afterward, on Tuesday, when the official charges came out, it was clear that the alleged shooter was, did not like Charlie Kirk, did not, and specifically targeted Charlie Kirk for his views. Okay. Now, so that's the bookends of the context. And again, just so we're clear, here's the thing that got Kimmel in trouble. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. So the criticism there from the right was that Kimmel knew that the MAGA, the guy who shot Charlie Kirk was not a MAGA person, and he was insinuating that it was. I didn't really read it that way. I basically read it as the Kimmel saying the MAGA crowd was sort of pointing fingers at everyone but themselves, like for what happened here, as opposed to this guy was of the MAGA world. It is, I think, no matter where you come at this, it is a little amorphous in terms of exactly what he meant, right? Which might be the problem, honestly, for Kimmel. You don't want to have things left up to interpretation in moments like this. But regardless, that's sort of fact one. That's what he said. Okay. Now, on Wednesday, before ABC announced that it was suspending Kimmel's show, Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, sort of oversees all broadcast in the country, Trump appointee, went on Benny Johnson's show, Benny Johnson, very pro-MAGA voice, and said, effectively, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way when it comes to sort of how the media treats Donald Trump and acts after moments like this. And he specifically mentioned Jimmy Kimmel. Now, again, a lot of this depends on where you come from. That could have just be Brendan Carr just saying, look, the media is too liberal and we're going to do something about it. Or it could read as an implicit or not as implicit threat to ABC that unless they do something about Kimmel, there are going to be problems. All right. So that's fact two. And again, both of these facts, as I've said, are up for some bit of interpretation as to what exactly they meant, but both of those things happened. Okay. Fact three, Kimmel's ratings were down. Now that's true of all late night TV. Kimmel was typically second behind Stephen Colbert, whose show CBS announced they were ending. And that started a whole thing about, how the media was capitulating, or big media was capitulating to Donald Trump, but consistently behind Colbert, about half as large an audience as Colbert about 2.58 million people, Kimmel about 1.3 million people. At times he bounced below Jimmy Fallon on NBC. At times he was above him. What I would say generally is late night TV is like all broadcast TV, and like I would say all television, is a declining medium. It is the ratings 10 years ago for late night TV and the relevance 10 years ago for late night TV versus the relevance and ratings now are down. And it doesn't seem to me like they're going to bounce back. So it is true that the ratings were not what they once were. It is true that Kimmel is not the number one rated show in that space. And the number one rated show in that space is ending, right? That's the Colbert Show. Okay. Fact four, Jimmy Kimmel, this was not an isolated incident for Kimmel. Kimmel is a liberal. Kimmel has spoken out lots of times, not just in comedic ways, but also in, at times, serious ways, particularly about COVID. And he drew a huge amount of attention for that. Obviously, the left loved him for it. The right and the did not. He is someone who's been very critical of Donald Trump, again, in comedic ways and in not comedic ways. So he is someone I think that the right had sort of circled for a long time, right? This is not a one-off where, oh man, he said something that might be controversial. There's a history here. And again, that's a fact, but the interpretation, of course, he's a comedian. He does a late night talk show. He's doing topical humor. Politics and Donald Trump is in that space, right? So it's I often find it hard to differentiate there. Fact 5. I think it is true that ABC and its parent company, Disney, are in charge of their talent. They can do what they want with their talent. If they decide that they don't want that person on or they're going to suspend that person, they can do it. It is also true that Disney, like Paramount, like CBS, like all these major media companies, have lots and lots of varied interests. Those interests, whether they are in the media space or otherwise, are directly impacted by the administration, any administration. And so they are obviously thinking in those terms when they make these sort of decisions. Was this decision determined by concerns that keeping Kimmel on would endanger other business they have before the Trump administration? Hard for me to know without giving Bob Iger, the head of Disney, some truth serum. But it is absolutely undeniable that these big corporate conglomerates have lots of competing interests, and the administration matters in those interests. So those are my 5 facts. What Kimmel said, what Brendan Carr said, right? Those are again, those things really do matter, right? Like let's look at those. They are a little bit up for interpretation, but they do matter. The ratings situation, right? Which Kimmel's ratings were down, not unique, but they were down. The environment that Kimmel had created in terms of his past comments is fact 4. And then fact 5 is big corporate media companies are looking out for lots of varying interests that an administration inevitably has some real control over. So that's where I'm at on it. I wanted to present facts to you today because there's so much spin. Those are facts. The interpretation of those facts, again, is up to interpretation, but those are facts. I hope that is helpful as we move forward to have at least an honest dialogue if we don't always agree, because we probably won't. Do me one favor. If you hit that subscribe button, you'll get free content like this every single day, and I'll continue to grow as a independent news creator. So I hope you hit that button. All right, everyone.